The warding spells guarding Ophelis Hall are returning to their original wielder. Her sword fighting skills are able to rival those of the combat department students and enough magic skill to wield intermediate spells without a hair out of place. Her name is Headmaid Alice, and yet she still couldn't defeat Taylor. After all, the protagonist's halo always exists. Right now, I need to defeat Shinny and complete the final task. Now my magical power is nearly depleted. All I can do now is 2 or 3 beginner magic attacks. Shinny made her way to attack me first. However, I am very familiar with Shinny's attack pattern. Her first attack is always aimed low. Seeing I dodged the attack, she was shocked. I just need to predict her next move before she realizes it. After all, I have conquered this level many times before. I grabbed her hand, aiming for the knives on her leg. No matter how fast she reacts, I am able to take control of the situation and threw the knives away from her reach. Realizing the difficulty of the situation, she used her special ability, the privilege of the twin sisters, blessed by the same star from birth, ability sharing. Twins can use each other's abilities once a day. Low-level telekinesis magic. The next moment, several throwing knives are hurled at me. However, I have no intention of dodging it. The knives embed themselves in my body. Seeing this, Shinny is overjoyed. Did it work? But the next second, she freezes. I looked at her directly with no hint of pain at all. I simply pull the knives out. Borrowed abilities are full of flaws. The knives didn't penetrate deeply enough. I threw the knives away and kicked her sword so she could never fight back. That's it. I win. All of this took 1 minute. I can't disappoint Miss Alice. Get off me, Shinny cried out loud. Alice will lose, I firmly answered. Hearing this, Shinny looked back at me. You know nothing about Miss Alice. How much pain she's gone through. The struggle she endured. To be honest, I have no idea. The failed swordsman of Sylvania didn't go deep into Alice's motivation at all. At the same time, Taylor used an elemental slash and swiftly made his way in front of Alice. She was totally stunned and unable to react. With a bang, an explosion can be heard outside, marking Alice's defeat. Even after hearing Shinny's plea, my view hasn't changed. That has nothing to do with me. I'll never forgive you for taking Lortel's side, Ed. With that, she said her last words. Unfortunately, I know nothing about the lives of these side characters, but it's not like that's my fault. In this world, countless stories are destined not to be noticed. If you compare all the losses today with Alice's rescuing of orphans this whole time and weigh the good and evil she's done, people who decide their course of action based on such philosophies are the ones with lives worth living at the moment. As for me, my operational principles and ultimate goal since arriving in this body have never changed. It is simply to survive. After defeating the maid Shinny, who was in charge of the dishes, I have acquired a new skill, pain endurance. Temporarily stop body fatigue, delay the sensation of pain, postponing it to a later time. I threw a stone to break the glass window and silently went inside Lortel's room. While inside, I can't help but notice the surroundings. The luxurious wooden furniture and expensive decorations are all arranged strategically. The desk is covered in documents. The books are lined up perfectly. Everything in this room suits her. Just then, I found the carrier pigeon Lortel was talking about. I quickly wrote the letter that Elt is in Sylvania. It will take him at least 3 days to return to the main headquarters, and lastly sell all acquired stocks of armor. After that, the carrier pigeon flying its way through the rain and the night sky will come back with Elt's head. My blood keeps on dripping. The stab wounds should heal as soon as the skin mends, so I'll be fine, right? If not for the help of Six, Janica, and a few other opportune moments, Elt would have captured Lortel, and her downfall would have been swift. But by now, the carriage Lortel hired is probably speeding out of the Arkan Mountains. Elt has no choice but to chase it, even if he captures the coachman and forces him to admit that Lortel never left. By that time, the carrier pigeon I sent will have arrived, and Elt's resignation will be complete. If it goes according to plan, Lortel should be waiting for me at the cabin. Just then, I saw Lortel's silhouette. You came out to greet me? How nice of you. However, Lortel didn't respond. Seeing this, I froze in shock. Right, I have to acknowledge things when they're due. I was a bit complacent. The opponent here is none other than the Golden Daughter, Lortel. In this case, the only ones who know that Lortel is the secret mastermind are the 5 she bribed. If Elt is gone, Alice must rely on Lortel only. Shinny and Kelly will follow Alice. Will Lane can be bought off like last time, but from Lortel's perspective, Ed Rothtaylor is a variable that can't be bought with money. If she just get rid of me in this remote part of the woods, away from the prying eyes, her perfect crime will be a success. Lortel Ketchum's real character is the secret mastermind. She would use and dispose of any human she gets her hands on. Truly a villain. I need to use my brain if I want to survive, but my body wouldn't move. So, this is how I will end in this world. I should have known. Then the next second, I saw Lortel cut a strip of cloth with a knife, and she handed it to me. Why did you have to get so hurt? Her tone was cold, but her actions were complex. I was taken aback, not expecting that she wasn't trying to attack me, but was actually helping me stop the bleeding. Although I know she is cautious by nature and never trusts anyone easily, at this moment, she seemed to let down some of her guard. I'll help you walk. The rain stopped, so I started a fire. She then looked at me worried eyes. For now, let's just sit and warm up. The incident at the Ophelis Hall finally came to a close, and Lortel once again displayed her cunning tactics. So, did everything go as planned? I asked Lortel Lortel. Of course, I got a promise from the coachman. He said that he would try his best to attract their attention and buy some time. He's even willing to risk his life. Hearing this, I was suddenly stunned and couldn't help but wonder in my mind. She wouldn't have taken someone's family hostage, would she? But I soon learned the answer. If the plan succeeded, Lortel would naturally become the president, and the coachman clearly understood the stakes involved. The fact that I owe you a debt is incredible. What do you think? Don't you feel a lot of pressure on your shoulders? Hearing this, I didn't show any reaction. Lortel flashed a meaningful smile, as if everything was under control. However, she knew best that the person she should be most grateful to was Ed. She said she would never forget this favor. Just then, she seemed to think of something and suddenly asked, "Senior, you and Janica are close, right?" I looked at her blankly but nodded in response. "Yes, my relationship with Janica is indeed good. She's a great person." Lortel smiled gently, her tone surprisingly sincere. "I respect her too. She's kind, excellent, and very hardworking." This made me even more puzzled. Why suddenly ask about Janica? However, Lortel did not continue to explain, just showed a heartfelt smile, and then said meaningfully, "It's just that, I'm not that nice." Meanwhile, at the Ophilis Hall, Elt suddenly received a report from his subordinates. Then he hurriedly left, as if he had lost all interest in the current state of Ophilis Hall. Even for Zix, dealing with several mercenaries at once was extremely difficult. However, instead of dealing with mercenaries, it seemed more like stopping allies. At first, Janica just looked worried, but at some point, the spirits started to become violent. It must be stopped before casualties occur. Zix loudly asked Janica if something had happened. "Senior Janica, are you angry about something?" Just then, a pigeon whispered something in her ear. She was quiet for a moment, then she showed a kind expression and said softly, "I'm not angry at all." The next day it was very difficult to go to class because my school uniform was a mess. Zix lent me his uniform and told me about the news. After that night, Will Lane took the blame for the destruction of the Ophilis Hall, while the captured head maid said nothing. At the same time, I successfully prevented Lortel, a key character in the plot, from exiting the scene. However, there has still been no response from outside, which seems to indicate that Lortel's plan is working. Now, we can only hope that the carrier pigeon brings back good news. However, this has had a significant negative impact on my workload. For me, this physically demanding job is already overloading, but I still need to complete it. Meanwhile, my advanced skill slot has finally opened, since the advanced production technique slots were currently empty. Acquiring a new technique that I could use was of the highest priority. I need to start learning new skills, such as spells for spiritual infusion that can be used in conjunction with elementalism and magic engineering for crafting daily life items and combat tools. Spiritual infusion was acquired automatically once you made a contract with a spirit and produced a product that contained elementalism. Magic engineering is mastered by successfully disassembling and assembling magic items of a certain level. I don't plan to waste my slot on spiritual infusion unnecessarily. I'll just randomly sign a contract with a lower level spirit for now. At this moment, Janica came to see me. But today is the start of the school year. Why hasn't she in class yet? My head hurts and my condition isn't all that great, so I'm just going to rest here and enjoy the breeze. You didn't get hurt while trying to help me, right? No way. Definitely not. Just then, she suddenly asked about Lortel's situation. When Janica learned that Lortel was in my cabin, her expression immediately turned wary. Although the Ophilis Hall incident has successfully concluded, things seem not to have completely settled down yet. There was still a lot of work left for Lortel to do. The first thing was to win over the former head maid Alice again. The second thing was to prepare for the negotiations to purchase the Sage's sealed grimoire. However, in the 3 days while waiting for a reply from Elt's headquarters, Lortel have to stay in this cabin anxiously. Though these days are irksome, Lortel does not tire of them, because with Ed by her side, Lortel can clearly feel her own heartbeat. Senior Ed's kindness makes me feel like I was snuggled in a fluffy bed. For some people, this may seem like a natural feeling, but for Lortel, it's more precious than gold. She definitely doesn't want anyone else to take him, not even Janica. Since so many people already like you, let me have one. If you won't, then I'll have to drag you into this murky swamp to fight. 3 days of cohabitation were a perfect opportunity for her. Then she planned to fill the entire cabin with gold coins. However, she also knew that Ed was very unlikely to accept. It might seem more natural if I help him with his tuition fees. This money isn't for you, Senior. Don't get it wrong. For Lortel, who had never been in love, such lines were too cheesy. Just then, someone suddenly interrupted her thoughts. That's my spot. Lucy walked into the room, visibly sleepy, and lay directly on the sunlit floor. But soon, I picked her up. This one sneaked in again. To not disturb Lortel's rest, I had to carry her out. Looking at the situation, Lortel was speechless. Then she asked, "Does Lucy come here often?" I told her not to mind it, just consider her an accident. But Lortel clearly didn't think so. So, I had another competitor. But I still have a lot of time. Let me settle this within 3 days. The second morning of Lortel's cabin life came. However, things did not go as smoothly as she had hoped, because she had no time alone at all. These two were like ghosts, always appearing around Ed, which was really annoying. Time quickly moved, and I'm finally done with my newly crafted item. A handmade brick, and I acquired the stoneworking skill. The fireplace that couldn't couldn't be built because of the Ophilis Hall incident was finally finished. It's mealtime and I cooked barbecues for all. Considering that nothing much has happened yet, things are probably going as well as planned, but we shouldn't let our guard down just yet. After the Ophilis Hall incident, Lortel promised to give me 20 gold coins, and she also mentioned she could give me other things. Hearing this, I thought about it. Right now, all I can think of is building materials, but if there are magical engineered goods, that would work too. At this moment, Janika's eyebrows were furrowed like a curved knife. Meanwhile, I called out to her. Speaking of which, I have a favor to ask you. I've been studying spirit magic recently and want to sign a contract with a lower level spirit. Can you help me? At this moment, Janika suddenly looked triumphant. Then I'll be your teacher. I can get you to sign a contract with a mid-level spirit right away. Soon, she summoned a spirit. Just focus your magical power and feel its presence. Karis, will you try to talk to Ed? I was surprised. I can hear its voice a little. However, Karis seemed reluctant. He has to raise his resonance to a higher level to be able to hear us properly. This man doesn't have time to learn magic. Miss Janika, don't you know? In the previous weekly reports, he was either building houses or finding materials. Janika awkwardly put Karis away. However, I faintly heard something about reports, which made me question her explanation. Just as Janika didn't know how to explain, Lortel suddenly interrupted her. About the magically engineered goods, there's more stock than expected. If the senior could visit the trading company every 3 days, I can sell it to you at the maximum discount, and you can also come over for tea and a chat. Hearing this, Janika was shocked and she immediately objected. You should give him those for free. Ed helped you out so much. I'm still a merchant. This is about professional ethics. You're just making excuses. But I paid no attention to their argument, as next I need to prepare for magic engineering and spirit magic. Meanwhile, a voice interrupted us. The visitor was the new head maid, Belle Maya. She was here to convey a message from the former head maid. Hearing this made Lortel a bit anxious. Back when Belle was hanging the laundry, Janika's friend Clara visited Belle to discuss something. Well, don't be shocked. This is really top secret. Word of this must not get out, and you mustn't react too much either. Then Clara leaned closer to Belle's ear to whisper, I think Janika likes Ed. None other than the Ed Roth Taylor. Hearing this, Belle wasn't surprised and thought, should I pretend to be surprised for the sake of being polite? I see. You must be very worried, Lady Clara. I don't know how she fell for such a ruffian, but it feels his reputation is improving little by little. As her friend, I support her. The next second, Clara turned serious. But that's not all. These days, Janika keeps mentioning a certain name, Lortel Ketchum. You see, she missed the opening ceremony, just like Ed, and yesterday, they were both absent from the first common class together. When it comes to relationships, it's all about playing hard to get, but I feel like Janika doesn't stand a chance, and I don't understand Ed either. It's ridiculous how he pretends not to notice Janika. He's either really dense or a total womanizer. Belle disagrees. I would say that rather than those two options, he simply is not in a position to be thinking about dating. No way that's true. I'm sure he's grinning at his good luck. Just imagining it gives me creeps. Luck, you say? A sly, thieving cat ready to pounce. An innocent kitten trembling before a tiger. And on the roof, just a cat. Belle watched our relationships get more complicated, and it only gave her a headache. She thought it best to quickly finish her business and go back. More importantly, what was it you wanted to say? I have a message for you, Lady Lortel. It is from the former head maid, Miss Alice. Time quickly moved into the night. After finishing her business, Janika returned to her dorm and Belle took Lucy with her as well. For Lortel, hiding in the cabin, the discovery by the head maid of Ophilis Hall that she was hiding here was quite annoying. At this moment, Elt had almost lost all his power. He no longer had the energy to deal with matters in Sylvania. Still, I reminded Lortel, be careful of his backlash. Now only Alice's matter remained, but that seems to have taken care of itself. The parchment Belle brought was neatly written with a list of orphanages she supports, along with the annual costs and methods of support. Alice's workload was relentless, and her health deteriorated, but the academy ignored her complaints. Eventually, she became unable to work and could not take responsibility for the orphanage, so she gambled with the life she had left. Due to her stoic and unemotional nature, no one seemed to have realized the dire situation she was in. Of course, those who were dedicated to Alice seemed to have somewhat understood her situation and motivation. She wanted to align with the winning side, because only then could she solve her current predicament. I glance at Lortel, thinking, in the world of merchants, there is no such word as sympathy. To make such a mistake is to be taken for a fool. She must know this better than anyone. From my point of view, too, nothing good will come from revealing the fact that I'm the mastermind behind this. Lortel then smiled. She looked somewhat relieved. I supposed I'll play along. Both enemies and allies are never permanent after all. After everything was settled, it was time for her to leave my cabin. Take this. It will last for a while, I said as I handed Lortel a torch. However, instead of taking it, she looked at me reluctantly, which puzzled me. Why are you thinking so much about taking it? Nothing. It's just that Ed, you're taller than I thought. That's out of nowhere. Lortel then looked down. It does seem a bit rushed, but if I want to win, I have to sometimes make some risky moves, I think. I was looking at her, still confused by what she meant. She then walked straight up to me and then adjusted my tie. The essence of human relationships is about push and pull. Like this tie. Look, it's twisted, isn't it? But I didn't pay much attention to these words. words. Does my attire really bother you that much? Well, there's nothing wrong with always keeping yourself looking neat. We are students of Sylvania after all. But in that instant, she suddenly grabbed my tie, tiptoed, and kissed me on the lips. The raspberries we ate in the evening were definitely delicious. Just thinking about them again makes me happy, and I was too stunned to react, just frozen in place. Damn it, Lortel, don't cross the line. However, Lortel didn't seem intent on giving up. She smiled slightly. Playing hard to get can be annoying if overdone. How about this time? You take the initiative, senior. She then starts walking away. I had planned to keep my distance from the main characters to avoid further trouble, but things in this world don't always go as planned. The stars I see from the forest are still beautiful, and the moon is still bright. The crackling of the campfire is also the same as always, but it seems the plot of the story has already changed. Regardless of my will, I feel a sense of discomfort, as if I'm being sucked into the center of the story. But my course of action hasn't changed. I just do what I need to do, as long as I get my diploma and increase my strength. Soon after, I realized how reckless and difficult this seemingly simple plan actually was. Just like that, summer passed, and time imperceptibly moved into autumn. The news of Lortel kissing me also reached Janica, and at this moment her spirits were all restless. If Janica doesn't act soon, she might be seduced away by the femme fatale. Yeah, I saw it too. It was wild. Youth is indeed amazing. That girl really knows how to play with people's heart. Janica was quite annoyed. She really wanted to know what my reaction was. Then, she learned the answer from Tarkan. Ed had clearly refused. Moreover, Ed's expression didn't change at all. He was so cold to her. Even I cringed while watching them. Hearing this, Janica finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, her spirits were all worried for Janica. The more you refuse such a femme fatale, the more obsessed they become. For you, this is definitely not a good thing. So, Tarkan gave her an idea. Then, when you are alone with Ed, give him a kiss too. Janica hesitated after hearing this, but the lion asked curiously, when you're with Ed, isn't there a scene of youthful innocence with hearts racing? Janica thought for a moment and blushed, feeding each other. Janica, truly, has fallen in love. Meanwhile, on the other side, I was trying to learn advanced cooking, and Lucy had become my test subject. Unfortunately, the first experiment failed. It doesn't taste good. Don't make me your taste testing machine, Lucy protested. I guess I'll have to delay honing my cooking skills until a wider variety of ingredients are available. This is my current life skills details. It seems I still need to improve my fishing, cooking, and repairing levels. Key stats greatly influence the proficiency of living skills. Improving just one ability value is inefficient. I must increase ability values in a balanced manner. The problem is that I'm too busy. Since school has started, excluding my time at school, the total time I can devote to survival activities is just about 5 or 6 hours, even if I cut back on sleep. But now there's something even more important, which is that I need to spend time observing whether the plot is still progressing smoothly. I usually observe the main characters at school, including the 4 main protagonists, including Taylor. Taylor, in the combat department, I rarely see him, but he is progressing well. Isla, as Taylor's partner, still his pillar of support. Princess Phineas, the benevolent princess, seems to be having a smooth life. Lortel, conflict between her and Phineas seems about to erupt. I still need to continue monitoring the plot's development. Clarice is not enrolling until next year, so I needn't worry about that for now. I now need to be even more careful observing Lortel, the golden daughter. Eld's premature downfall, who knows what changes it will bring. The other reason I needed more time was because I need to spend time observing the movements in the faculty building. After all, the final boss of Act 2 is an unexpected character, Professor Glast. So, there's a hidden mastermind behind the Ophilus Hall incident. If you think so, then it's probably true. You have oddly good intuition. After all, Assistant Professor Claire Elfin analyzed the reasons behind the recent riot, suspecting there was more to it. However, Professor Glass didn't care at all. But be careful not to miss the important stuff, like the thesis on divine science I asked you to find. Although Claire was sent away by the professor, she didn't plan to give up. While looking at her analyzation, she thought, do I really need to be so concerned about a case that is more or less wrapped up already? But no matter how I look at it, something's off. And the most likely culprit in her mind was Ed Rothtaylor. Meanwhile, at the Alt Merchant Association's branch, I arrived as Lortel had requested. She had prepared magic engineering items for me, but forgot to bring the contract. So, she hoped I could sit down and have tea for a while. Feeling puzzled, I asked, was your attire always like this? Lortel smiled slightly and gestured for me to give an opinion. I have an important appointment. How does it look? However, I didn't pick up on her topic, instead asking, an important appointment? This momentarily stunned Lortel and awkwardly laughed. Yeah, it's something you don't know about. Then she quickly changed the subject. Is your cabin ready? Do you need furniture? To which I responded affirmatively. It's in the final stages now. Although I need furniture, the items your company sells are all high-end, and I simply can't afford them. Lortel walked over to a chair and then said, offering goods for free is not in line with a merchant's professional ethics. As soon as the words left her mouth, she directly destroyed one leg of the chair, then added, this thing can't be sold anymore. I'll have it delivered to you tomorrow. I was stunned, not expecting her to do that, and could only respond, thank you then, as I sipped my tea. However, Lortel was dissatisfied with my attitude and snorted retorted coldly, "Such a heartless guy. Your expression doesn't change at all, does it?" After saying this, she walked right up to me and sat on the table. She seemed somewhat discontent as she muttered, "I really don't understand you." I basically made the winning move. Has Senior Ed never seen me as a woman? At this moment, Lortel had already considered Ed as her man. This left me at a loss for how to respond, and I could only remain silent. However, Lortel didn't seem to expect a response from me. She confidently said, "Even though you seem indifferent now, there will come a day when you'll be restless, and then I won't be the only one who can't contain myself." I know Lortel's personality. That seductive smile does not change whether she is confident in her victory or pushed into a corner. As a merchant, she always covers her inner feelings with a unique demeanor, never easily showing her emotions. The scene shifts to noon. Next up is Janica teaching me how to sign a contract with a spirit. Flames began to appear between her hands, and I concentrated my magical power to sense it as she instructed. Soon, the flames gradually changed and took the shape of a spirit, and a voice came, "Master Ed, it is an honor to sign a contract with you. I am the junior fire spirit Mug, who achieved the highest results in magical efficiency training within the Northern Forest's internal organization. Among my peers, my communication skills are the strongest. I will fully assist you." Hearing this introduction, I was reminded of the spirit skills I had once tapped into while playing the failed swordsman of Sylvania, feeling a familiar sensation. However, this guy seemed a bit odd to me. Why is he so strict? It turns out that during earlier training, Tarkan had subjected the spirits to devilish training, and Mug emerged as the champion in the selections. Janica eagerly hoped I would accept him. When I held Mug in my hands, a wave of warmth spread through me, which pleased me immensely. It was like a portable heater. After signing the contract with Mug, my fire magic abilities would see significant enhancement. His abilities are very practical for survival, even making it unnecessary for me to use firewood in the future. "I'm glad to see you happy, Ed." Meanwhile, Janica began to explain the precautions. However, halfway through her explanation, she suddenly stopped. Then, Janica called out to me. With a serious look on her face, she said, "I'm actually very busy too. I'm really busy. Usually, even if people look for me, I might not be able to make time." It turns out that earlier, Clara and Tarkan had suggested she learn the tactic of playing hard to get. She shouldn't be too nice to Ed one-sidedly, and should make him take more initiative. Hearing this, I suddenly realized, and somewhat apologetically said, "I'm really sorry. I took your kindness for granted. As a gesture of sincerity, I should at least give you some money." Upon hearing this, Janica immediately stopped me, instructing, "Don't waste money. There's no way I'm taking it. Besides, having you pay me would make things seem all formal. We're closer than that, aren't we? You're really making me so sad." Seeing this, I was very confused. Wasn't this the response she wanted? But at that moment, Janica didn't know how to explain and just blurted everything out. Clara said I'm too generous by nature, so I should learn to say no more often, which I immediately agree. Then she called out to me again, her face showing a hint of shyness, and she softly said, "I'm not like this with everyone." After saying this, she hurriedly said goodbye to me as her afternoon elective class was about to start. I also waved goodbye at her. After returning to the cabin, I finally learned the advanced crafting skill, magic engineering. Thanks to the magical tools Lortel gave me, their structure was very simple, allowing me to smoothly master this advanced skill. Additionally, the fuel issue was also resolved. When I run out of firewood, I can use Mug, and when Mug's magic is depleted, I'll use the fireplace. My living environment is now guaranteed to be stable. Although it's a small thing, it gave me extra peace of mind. Next, it was time to check my traps. At the same time, Claire also arrived in the forest. She thought it over and felt there must be a conspiracy behind the Ophelis Hall incident. Could it be because he was disowned that Ed became a suspect? The only others present were students or related personnel of the Ophelis Hall, but Taylor and Ed had no interaction with the museum. Apart from Taylor, who resolved the riot, the only possibility was Ed. Just then, she heard an unusual noise. Following that, she saw Ed carrying Lucy with a dead animal in tow. Seeing this, she was utterly shocked. Lucy, a figure comparable to the great mage Glocht and Principal Abel, was now being carried on his shoulder. So, my intuition was right. The hidden mastermind behind Ophelis Hall is Ed Roth Taylor. Afterwards, Claire followed Ed to his cabin. After I put Lucy aside, I went back to my room to rest, as there were important matters to attend to tomorrow. Seeing me enter the room, Claire quietly approached Lucy. At that moment, she thought about rescuing Lucy, but when she reached out to Lucy in the blink of an eye, Lucy was gone. Claire looked back, confused, while Lucy looked at her warily. After seeing who it was, Lucy did not relax her vigilance. Then, she flew back to the small treehouse, looked at Claire, started gnawing on some jerky, and flew away without saying a word, leaving Claire standing there bewildered. The scene shifts to the next day. Claire found Professor Glass again and told him everything that happened last night, but Glass dismissively said, "Ed, that trash is not worthy of my attention." Following this, Claire pulled out a history recording orb. The orb clearly showed some of Ed's unusual actions. Still, Glass shook his head. The evidence is still insufficient. Even the incident with Lucy yesterday could just be her finding a new place to sleep. This left Claire speechless, and she was again dismissed by Professor Glass. This time, Glass started to check the crystal ball. The crystal ball recorded the scene scene of Ed blocking Taylor and his group, but he was quickly defeated. Taylor was born with a swordsman's talent, and with the help of the genius alchemist Elvira, it was impossible for ordinary people to stop the two of them. However, Glass saw an even more interesting scene. The scene shifts. I am imbuing a dagger with a spirit's technique. This dagger, engraved with burst-type magic, can activate the engraved magic, and with its enhancement, the activation speed becomes very fast and the efficiency greatly increases. At this moment, Mug kept praising me. Master Ed, your craftsmanship is incredible. To express my happiness, I plan to sing a song. Seeing this, I immediately interrupted him, which made Mug look very aggrieved. Master Ed, I'm sorry. If you tell me what I did wrong, I will sincerely reflect and correct it. I reluctantly stopped him, saying, no need for formalities with me. After spirits leave their juvenile form and become lower-level spirits, they usually sign contracts with spirit masters to gain magic power and elevate their status. If it's a powerful spirit master like Janica, the spirits who sign contracts with her are deeply grateful. However, signing a contract with an ordinary person like me, and you're still so polite, doesn't that seem strange? Did Janica give you any benefits? Seeing Mug's reaction, I immediately signaled him to be honest. It turns out, just by signing a contract with me, Janica would use her magic to help Mug evolve, which could let him train several times faster than ordinary junior spirits. Furthermore, Janica also required Mug to report back to her about me at all times. Hearing all this, I also felt some sympathy for Mug's plight, as the class system in the spirit world is indeed too strict. Survival has always been the most important thing. If one doesn't enhance their own strength, they are just open to being bullied. Time quickly moved to a few days later, and although there was no progress in my combat skills, my physical strength had increased considerably, and my storehouse was filled with food and spices, completely freeing me from the plight of hunger. Rote memorization and theoretical studies can be completed with some time and effort. Although I'm living a day and night life, compared to the beginning, my current situation has improved a lot. I was almost asleep when, fortunately, Janica woke me up. Ed, snap out of it. What's wrong? At this moment, she was very concerned about my health, and I needed to focus, because today I received 3 letters. The first letter was from the academy. The second letter was from the trading company. Both letters weren't very important, but the third letter needed to be read carefully because its contents proved that many changes had already occurred in the plot. What's going on now is the main story of Act 2, the purchase of the Sage's Sealed Grimoire. The Sage's Sealed Grimoire was supposed to be a competition between the school and the trading companies, but due to Elt's downfall, the family head Crapin Roth Taylor, who had commissioned Elt to purchase the Sage's Sealed Grimoire, got involved. Eventually, this conflict evolved into a 3-way struggle. Crapin tried to use the Sage's Sealed Grimoire to study immortality, but after messing things up, he had to step in personally to purchase the Sage's Sealed Grimoire. Crapin is a boss who would only appear in Act 4 of The Failed Swordsman of Sylvania, and now he is very powerful, with no method capable of restraining him. So this time, he must be removed from the plot. Although as long as he gets the Sage's Sealed Grimoire, the plot would continue smoothly, but in the original, without the Sage's Sealed Grimoire, Crapin is already the boss of Act 4. If he got the Sage's Sealed Grimoire, I wouldn't be able to rely on the advantage of information, and might even fail to complete the game. This letter detailed all of Crapin's actions and expressed suspicions about him, also indicating a desire to collaborate with me. The sender was Fenia. Fenia had received a plea for help from the principal because the academy had fallen into a financial crisis, but as royalty, she couldn't easily provide financial support. If things continued, the trading companies would obtain the Sage's Sealed Grimoire, which symbolizes the important status of the academy. Selling it would undoubtedly be a disgrace. Principal Abel requested Fenia's help privately. However, Fenia was puzzled about how Crapin learned of this deal. The guard suspected that I had reported the news to Crapin, as this could be my chance to return to the family. While the two were discussing, a voice interrupted them. I wonder if someone as lowly as me could have the honor of having tea with the princess. This is unexpected, Lortel. Fenia did not decline the invitation, but she was curious why Lortel would come to see her. Originally, Lortel came to inform Fenia about the inside story of why Crapin intervened. This matter is because of my adoptive father Elt, and has nothing to do with Senior Ed. Hearing this, Fenia was surprised. Lortel initially did not know about Crapin's plan, but after Elt's downfall, the plan to purchase the Sage's Sealed Grimoire did not stop, so Elt had to collaborate with Crapin. Fenia became more puzzled. If that's the case, your interests should align, but why does it seem like you are now competitors? Lortel interrupted Fenia while sipping her tea. My father Elt and I are no longer on the same side. Fenia continued to inquire, but why do you want to tell me these insider details? Lortel smiled lightly. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Princess Fenia can restrain the Roth Taylor family, and I can get the Sage's Sealed Grimoire, making this a mutually beneficial cooperation. Lortel said to Fenia with a candid face, I'm afraid that the innocent Senior Ed might get involved, so I came to tell you this. As his junior, I'm a bit worried about him. He has been ousted from the family and started a new life. Wouldn't it be too unjust if you were wrongfully accused of joining the Roth Taylors? Fenia frowned slightly, unclear why Lortel was so concerned about Ed. It seems he still has some utility value. I will sincerely seek his help. Lortel paused, then added, but what if he refuses? Phineas spoke firmly, then we'll just have to use him. Lortel was momentarily stunned by these words, then her face showed anger, but she burst out laughing. Who did you say you want to use? Princess Phineas actually wants to exploit Ed? Claire intervenes. How dare you say that in front of the princess? But Phineas signaled him to stop. Lortel said mockingly, if we're allies on this matter, then I still want to offer some sincere advice. Don't dream of using Ed, because you might very well end up being used by him instead. We must hold her accountable for her impudence. Princess. No need. Claire. Phineas fell silent for a moment. Several questions surfaced in her mind. What is Ed really thinking? Why did Crepin suddenly interfere with the purchase of the sage's sealed grimoire? And this woman in front of her, daring to act so arrogantly in front of the princess. What right does she have? She had no answers and didn't know if she would ever see Lortel show a flustered expression in her lifetime. The scene shifted to the other side. Lortel was looking at Janica in disbelief. Hey Lortel, long time no see. How have you been doing? She never expected Janica would be by Ed's side. Things just turned out this way, Ed added. But Lortel didn't want to entertain her, so she decided to prepare a glass of cold water for her, even deliberately not adding ice. Although she had clearly seen the tea meant for guests, I still handed Janica the hot tea. While Lortel was a little upset, she had no choice but to accept it reluctantly. Then, Lortel changed the subject and said, the magic engineering supplies you need have been prepared. Lortel showed the supplies, and this left Janica dumbfounded. What she was looking at was not some defective goods, but clearly brand new products just brought out. Lortel then smiled and pointed to the scratches on the supplies, saying, look closely, there are 2 distinct scratches on them. These things can't be sold. Janica understood in her heart that Lortel was doing this on purpose. For Lortel, it was clearly more important whether she could help Senior Ed than whether these items could be sold. Watching this scene, I felt very embarrassed. I had accepted Lortel's help several times, yet never paid her anything. Janica lowered her head, lost in thought, knowing that this cunning fox was surely plotting something. Meanwhile, my vision began to blur, as if some force was sweeping over my body. This familiar feeling made me feel like I was floating in water again. Countless thoughts flashed through my mind. There was still a lot I needed to accomplish. I must stay vigilant about Crepin's involvement with the sage's sealed grimoire. This is a major event that will unfold in 2 weeks. More urgently, I need to make a soft mattress. The deer I caught a few days ago needs to be processed quickly, and the cabin needs cleaning. Lucy's jerky needs restocking. However, I currently feel completely drained. Meanwhile, Janica and Lortel also noticed something was off with me. Elsewhere, Phineas is beginning to suspect Ed. She recalls his clumsy fishing at the campsite, which contrasts sharply with his composed demeanor during the Battle of Glaskin. She hears students discussing how hard Ed studies. Lortel reminds her not to speculate about Ed lightly, suggesting that her insight eye might be malfunctioning. This time, Phineas decides to verify for herself. She turns to Claire and says, ask Ed to come here. I need to speak with him. However, Claire indicates that Ed might not be able to make it because he has fainted from exhaustion. Hearing this, Phineas is utterly shocked. Status effect: exhaustion. Symptoms include high fever due to overwork, indigestion, chronic fatigue, migraine, a periodic comatose state, difficulty breathing, and more. Please take adequate rest to recover from this condition. When I regain consciousness, I find breathing difficult. As my vision clears, I see Lucy lying on top of me, and she is actually dreaming about gourmet food. Why is this person lying on top of me and talking in her sleep? Lucy is lighter than she appears, so much so that I doubt she is even human. However, I am currently unable to move, and it seems the problem lies with me. This looks like my cabin. The blanket looks new. Is it from the Elk Merchantry? Just then, Lucy wakes up hungry. This person seems capable of nothing but eating, drinking, and sleeping. Seeing me awake, she immediately casts a healing spell. Lucy tells me that the problem is with my body. Continuous magic training and excessive use of spirit techniques have disrupted my magical energy. So you were the one taking care of me while I was unconscious? Lucy nodded, indicating that it was no trouble for her. She often got bored, which is why she would accidentally fall asleep. Although the others glared at her several times, they said nothing. Lucy then spoke again. I hope you don't get sick. She said being sick is miserable, and some people even die from it. Lucy mentioned that she once watched someone like her grandfather, Glocked, die in bed, which still saddens her to this day. In response, I thanked Lucy. Thanks to you, I was able to recover so quickly. Just then, I heard a noise. Zix burst through the door, only to see Lucy sitting on top of me. A shy Lucy quietly picked up her hat and quickly flew away. Zix looked at me incredulously and asked, Ed, how many has it been now? But after thinking it over, he found it reasonable. A strong male will attract many females. It's natural, he concluded. It seems my view of civilization is too rigid. I was puzzled as to why Zix was here. He explained Janica had to attend class because she skipped too many, and Lortel had to go back to deal with guild affairs. Although Elka or Clara might have been more attentive, Lortel expressly stated that no other women should come, so it had to be me, a big man, to take care of you. Hearing this, I realized I needed to check on the plot's progress, so I asked about the Mandragonas. Zix told me that the issue was caused by Alvira and has now been resolved solved by Taylor and Clebius. The monsters of the Telos Order were dealt with by him and Taylor together. Curiously, he asked me, "Senior, how do you know these rumors?" I didn't answer directly, but instead asked him, "How long was I unconscious?" When I found out I had been unconscious for 10 days, I was stunned. "Everyone will be thrilled to see you awake. However, they won't be a plea to see you today. Janika's at the academy while Lortel has an important negotiation to prepare for tomorrow." Hearing this, I quickly finished the rest of the food because some things can't be delayed any longer. Afterward, I asked Zix to relay a message to Lortel for me. This is very important. The next day, Act 2, Scene 10, the battle for the Sage's sealed grimoire officially begins. The ones involved are Princess Phenia, acting President Lortel, and the man who strayed from the original storyline, the head of the Roth-Taylor family, Creepin Roth-Taylor, the final boss of Act 4, all take the stage. Upon seeing Princess Phenia, Creepin's first act is to apologize. "I am very sorry for the inconvenience caused by Ed," he added. "However, I have already dismissed him." Phenia gestures for him not to worry too much. "I haven't taken it to heart." Phenia had heard that Creepin was noble, kind, and wise, a duke with supreme power. From the actions of his other servants, one could feel their respect for Creepin. However, at this moment, Phenia's eyes see the true him and are desperately telling her that this man is thoroughly evil. Just then, Creepin notices Lortel standing by. "You are the proxy of the Elt Trading Company, I presume." Lortel then slightly bows and begins her introduction. "So you're the only daughter of El Ketchum, the Golden King. I have heard much about high insight and adventurous spirit." She smiled at him. "We go wherever there's a good profit to be made. After all, we follow wherever the scent of money leads us." "I see," Creepin commented quickly. After lunch, the next item on the agenda is the auction for the Sage's sealed grimoire. Both parties write down the maximum price they are willing to pay, and the highest bidder will obtain the Sage's sealed grimoire. The Sage's sealed grimoire is a treasure of the Sylvania Academy, and the Dean does not want too many people to know about this transaction. However, due to the Academy's financial problems, they are forced to take this measure. Eventually, he comes up with this solution, with Princess Phenia as the guarantor and the vice principal acting as the Academy's representative to secretly hold the bidding. Now, among those present, whoever offers the higher price will obtain the Sage's sealed grimoire. Phenia knows that these people have already researched similar transaction prices, whether it's the academic value of the Sage's sealed grimoire or its symbolic significance as a luxury item, and looked into similar book trades, so they are well versed in these data. Intrinsic magical value, academic value as a research subject, and value as a simple luxury. Lortel probably knows the prices and transaction records of way more books by heart, but Phenia thinks that Creepin is likely to win this auction. Soon, both parties have written down their prices. In this rule, the most important thing is to know the upper limit of the opponent's bid. Lortel has already stated that he is only in it for the profit, so she will not bid higher than the highest historical amount of 8,100 gold coins. Creepin only needs to add a little more to this price, and the Sage's sealed grimoire will be his. Creepin's bid was 8,500 gold coins, which was expected by Phenia. Clearly, Creepin wanted the book badly enough to personally come to the Academy to participate in the auction. However, when Phenia heard Lortel's bid, she was stunned, because her bid was 9,400 gold coins. This left Phenia very puzzled. Wasn't Lortel's goal to profit? Creepin, with his face full of reluctance, could only leave helplessly. At this moment, Princess Phenia was deeply confused. Was Lortel's goal from the beginning to prevent a villain like Creepin from getting the Sage's sealed grimoire? But she knew this was just her speculation. Lortel was not the type to act selflessly. Moreover, even if Creepin was a villain, she had no concrete evidence to prove it, unless someone had instructed or ordered Lortel in advance to thwart Creepin's plans through her. Combining what Lortel had said earlier, Phenia came up with a possibility. If someone wanted to counter the Roth-Taylor family, that person was likely Ed Roth-Taylor. Thinking this, Phenia felt a pang of guilt. She had once tried to use Ed. However, the princess's misunderstanding turned out to be a blessing. The scene shifts, and Lortel quickly signs a contract with the Academy. Although her bid was 900 gold coins higher than Creepin's, she did not feel it was a loss, because she knew this time she could make Ed agree to any request. For her, this deal was an absolute bargain. At this moment, Lortel even hesitated to put down the letter Ed had given her. She needed to carefully consider what kind of price she should make Ed pay. If the princess saw her expression now, she would probably have coughed up blood. The scene shifts to another side. I know Lortel has feelings for me, but thinking about the internal power struggles she is about to face in the Roth-Taylor family, I feel somewhat guilty. Just then, Janica learned that I had awakened and rushed over immediately. I expressed my gratitude for her recent help. "I heard I caused you a lot of trouble," which Janica immediately denies. However, Zix suddenly brought up a rumor that Janica was seen crying over a broken heart at school. Hearing Zix mention this rumor, and Janica's face turned red with anger as she stomped her feet. "Zix, what are you talking about? Who said I was heartbroken?" Zix innocently spread his hands. Before Zix could finish, he was dragged away by a friendly bear. Janica waved him goodbye. "That's a funny story, Zix, but you know the weather's so cold today. Be careful not to catch a cold." Seeing this, I was speechless. At that moment, I saw Mug with with a look of grievance on his face, which puzzled me. Mug, why are you on Janica? He then bowed down at me. Please kill me, Master Ed. The foolish mug, had no idea that you were pushing yourself so hard. It turned out, he was worried about using up my mana, so he had borrowed Janica's mana to appear. Just then, Zix came back, and agrees that considering I was unconscious for 10 days, Mug is not overreacting. At the same time, I thought about many unresolved matters. The meat that hadn't been dealt with was probably rotten by now, and the fishing nets must have broken because I didn't maintain them. It looks like I have to start over. Soon after, both Janica and Zix called out to me. As friends, we'll definitely help you. As long as we work together, the problems can surely be solved. This reminds me of not long ago when this place was just a thatched hut. Back then, I was penniless and had no one to rely on. Many things were progressing slowly, but regardless, I've resolved way more issues and survived until now. They're right. Everything will somehow work out, I muttered to myself. At this moment, Janica recalled Marilda's words. He looks really tired, but this is your chance. Take advantage of that red fox being busy with business and strike first. That girl is quite clever. You need to learn from her. To get the man, you must become a fox yourself. First was the attire. She thought Janica's current dress made her look like a country housewife. However, Janica felt a bit shabby, but Marilda gave her full marks. Men will be enchanted by this domestic and virtuous look. Finish it off with a high ponytail to let him feel the charm of a good wife. But this senior spirit dating expert has been single since birth. Despite this, Janica was all ears. Next, let's get that man, she resolved quietly to herself. Time quickly moved to late at night. Janica's soup was indeed delicious, completely different from Zix's cooking. Maybe I should also learn to cook. Instead of thinking about this, I better recover quickly. As I lay down, I heard a noise. The door was pushed open again, and there stood Janica, looking shyly at me. What did she want to do? I was puzzled, wondering what she wanted so late at night. However, Janica signaled to me not to worry, as she wouldn't do anything. You don't have to pretend like you're not having a hard time, she commented. That confuses me. She knew I lived hard and had a tougher day than most. It's the same for everyone. Exhaustion comes at you both physically and mentally. A lot of people helped and comforted me when I was having a hard time, but in the end, what helped me the most wasn't someone rush support, but a person quietly staying by my side. You've had a hard time, haven't you? Great job, Ed. Seeing this, I reminded Janica she didn't have to go to such lengths for me, but Janica cut me off directly. What you need to do now is admit you're tired so that you can rest properly. After her words, I lay in bed, feeling relieved. Yes, I had a hard time. During this period, I was indeed very tired, not just for my own life, but also for the plot of the story. Now, I just want to sleep well. When I opened my eyes again, it was the next morning. To my surprise, Janica was sleeping by the bedside, drooling. My lips curled upward at this sight, and I couldn't help but laugh. I sincerely thanked her, as I was now fully recovered. However, these 10 days did not go according to plan, especially regarding the research on magic engineering supplies. Now I can only rely on assembling supplies myself for self-study, but I've hit a bottleneck, because most of the magic engineering techniques are main plot mission rewards. In order not to affect the original plot, I can't directly obtain these materials, but it looks like Taylor isn't particularly interested in magic engineering. It's probably because even if you had understood the production methods, you couldn't make usable magic engineering supplies right away. According to the plot, I need to wait until the latter half to get the materials, but the situation is different now. There's someone here who can get any material you need. After finding out I was awake, Lortel came over early in the morning. Seeing my condition, she finally relaxed. Then, she sat down close to me because she had something to discuss. After Elt's downfall, she decided to change the name Elt Trading Company to just Trading Company. Using the original name would feel strange. Thus, she needed someone to help manage her staff and property. She then smiled shyly. Imagine this, waking up in the morning and going to the guild with just a wall between us. It's just like being married. Hearing this, I broke out in a cold sweat. Lortel, isn't it strange that you'd go that far for me? But Lortel didn't care about these things. She countered. Do you think I'm acting too impulsively, that I shouldn't let youthful emotions cloud my judgment, right? So you only want to maintain a business relationship with me? Although I denied it verbally, this was indeed my truest thought. Lortel has lived her life in the shadow of betrayal, so what she desires most is to find someone who will absolutely never betray her. Someone who would stand by her even if the whole world turned against her. For some, this person might be a family member or a lover. My request is not much. I just hope you can always stay by my side. This left me unsure of how to respond. Lortel say that without trying to hold your laughter in. Hearing this, Lortel burst out laughing. It seems this tactic doesn't work. What a shame. I almost had you. Showing such a pitiful look should have made you waver. Though Lortel said these words jokingly, they were not entirely false. There was a moment of silence. Then, I told her my plans for this period. I won't leave school before graduation. But Lortel didn't say much, as she's not one to give up easily. I can wait until you graduate. Maybe by then, I'll be able to use this free pass, she said. Also, she added, I'm happy to see you again, Ed. Thinking about what might happen next, I suddenly felt as if I had done something wrong, like I owed someone a favor. Lortel, hiding behind a tree, appeared very nervous, because she originally intended to use this free pass to make Ed completely hers. But seeing Ed's expression, her plans shifted, and even the money she was supposed to give Ed for magic engineering supplies wasn't handed over. Going back to do it now might be awkward, so she planned to just leave the items in Ed's cabin. But unexpectedly, Janica pushed open the door from inside. "Ed went to the river, right? I should prepare a snack before she comes back." This scene stunned Lortel. Why would Janica be coming out from there? At the same time, Janica also questioned her. Why did she come from the river? At this moment, the air was filled with tension. For Ed, a new disaster was about to start. However, I was unaware of this. Mug keeps on reminding me to take care of myself. Mug wanted to maintain our contract for a long time. Hearing this, Tarkan must have scolded it, so I apologized. With Zix and Janica's help, food and firewood were well prepared, and furniture was thanks to Lortel. Now, the only thing worrying me was the 3 letters I received before I fainted. One was from Lortel, one was from Fenia telling me about Krapen, and the last one was from the school. The sender was an unexpected person, Professor Glast, who mentioned in the letter that he hoped to meet with me alone after the conference. Unfortunately, because I fainted, I couldn't meet him. Now, I have no way of knowing why you wanted to see me then. Glast is the final boss of Act 2, and now, the final chapter of Act 2 has begun. I remember most of the content. Professor Glast believes that only a few elites can change the world. Therefore, he studied aspectual magic, which can reverse the natural laws of the world, in an attempt to resurrect the great sage, Sylvania. However, Sylvania Academy fell into Lortel's schemes. To complete the aspectual magic, they decided to sell the sage's sealed grimoire. In desperation, Glast snatched the sage's sealed grimoire and infused Sylvania's spirit into Isla, who naturally possesses aspectual magic, trying to usher in a new era of progress. It was literally a madman's narrative, but what he did to Isla was clearly the wrong choice, because our protagonist, Taylor, will save Isla and break into his research lab. After all his plans were thwarted, Glast jumped from a high tower despite only dreaming of academic advancement and the discovery of talented individuals. But before that, he uttered some mysterious last words, though I can't quite remember what he said. The kidnapping of Isla marks the beginning of the plot. At this moment, Isla looks ahead with fear on her face. Makes sense since the demon of the underground waterway is quite terrifying, isn't it? It's your fault. I don't understand why you would do this, Edroth Taylor. Seeing this, I was stunned. Aren't you being way too mean? Take a good look. I was also brought in here. I was kidnapped too. Time goes back to 3 days ago, when I just happened to have some time to finish what I hadn't completed before. Because Glass Conquest War was about to begin, I needed to quickly enhance my strength. At this time, I suddenly thought of a way to drastically raise my magic engineering stat. In the final chapter, there are 4 challenge stages. Among the 4, the toughest is Phase 3, the secret laboratory. The boss of this stage is Reina, the spirit library's librarian. Without a swordsman style, it's impossible to get through. However, this should be Taylor's problem to solve. What I really care about are the things inside the spirit library. There are many precious magic engineering methods there. I remember there being dozens. Although it's a bit dangerous, it should be no problem as long as I'm not going alone. The scene shifts to the academy. Glast announces in Class A that 2 people will join next semester, and Isla is one of them. This confuses Zix, because Isla's abilities are average, the only special thing being her strong sensitivity to aspectual magic. Therefore, he directly questions, isn't the way to join Class A through selection? Hearing this, Glast's expression suddenly becomes serious. Do you think I am belittling those hardworking students? Hearing this, Zix was speechless. The fastest way to destroy someone is to cheer them on and trust them unconditionally when they clearly have no talent. Lortel sighs lightly, because she has investigated Professor Glast of the Academy. Glast's obsession with talent may be due to his daughter. Glast's daughter, Muri, was an ordinary magician, but he had unlimited faith in his daughter. This is the most normal thing for a parent, but Muri felt that this was not trust from a parent, but from a professor of magic. With such confidence, the confident Muri participated in a monster subjugation battle at a young age and eventually never returned to this world. Glast couldn't accept this fact at the time. Since then, he has become obsessed with talent, dedicating the rest of his time to the study of aspectual magic. However, Lortel knows that what he truly seeks is not the magic itself, but someone who can create aspectual magic. However, historically, only Sylvania has managed to do this. Just then, Glass stopped her. He expressed his desire to discuss something with her tomorrow. Lortel guessed that he might want to talk about the sage's sealed grimoire, as the transfer of ownership of the book was about to begin. Meanwhile, I was thinking about how to get those supplies. Although I now have a method to cope, it is indeed a bit dangerous. The core of the battle is to be a hanger-on. Taylor, in order to save Isla, will break through 5 stages. I just need to follow behind him and can pick up the equipment he drops. Regarding this, I also wrote a list of things I must get my hands on, especially the Glock's-Eye from the 3rd stage. It can enhance my proficiency and skills, and the Delheim's Hourglass can return my physical state to 2.5 seconds before. Anyway, these things are of no use to Taylor, so I'll unapologetically take them. I'll also enjoy watching Taylor's performance before returning to my cabin. This is simply a perfect plan. Glast's subjugation battle is set on the day of the sage's sealed grimoire sensing ceremony. I've already arranged for Janica to accompany me to the sewers to look for the lost lost items. I thought she would be afraid and reluctant, but she agreed right away. This made me feel a bit guilty. However, with a powerful ally by my side, my plan is perfect. Just as I was about to leave, Assistant Claire stopped me, saying Professor Glass wanted to see me. The sensing ceremony is tomorrow. Why would he call me now? Last time I was unconscious and didn't go, and now he's calling me again. It must be something important. When I arrived, I saw Isla. Does she really need to be so wary of me? But thinking about how I had shot her with an arrow before, it's no wonder she feels this way. She was kidnapped at the start of the second act's final battle. How is she here now? And why call me over? A bad thought crossed my mind. Although I know what will happen in the future, elements could still change. Soon, I found my own investigation report. It turns out he has been watching me, including what I did at the Ophilis Hall. But what's the connection between these two things? Meanwhile, I heard footsteps outside the door and immediately drew the sword at my waist. Seeing Professor Glass, Isla rushed over, but what met her was a spatial lock. Soon, she was restrained. Then, a sharp knife flew towards the professor. Just when Professor Glass thought he could easily subdue his opponent, he didn't expect the other party to have a hidden move, which he hadn't anticipated. A poor student actually able to use such fluent magic? Glass wondered. So you've read all the materials on the table in such a short time? What intrigued him even more was that Ed could guess his intentions. Then, I asked him, is it really necessary to attack me? Isla is your target, isn't she? Glass obviously had his own plans. He said, I hope you don't think too harshly of me. I was puzzled why he would say this. Don't think harshly of him? That makes sense. Even if I escaped from here, he wouldn't easily let me go, and it could likely affect a later plot. If I and Isla were kidnapped, we would be locked in the secret laboratory. In other words, I could skip the first 2 stages. Rather than struggle, it might be simpler to just let him capture me. Glass didn't expect me to come forward voluntarily, but it also saved him some effort. At first, Glass was puzzled how someone who lived in the wilderness could achieve such good results. He even wondered if I had 48 hours a day. And from the crystal ball, my combat ability was seen through perfectly analyzing the opponent and using every means to win. He said, this is the way of the weak. It's not about talent, but about effort. He noticed that my expression was not at all confused, which reminded him of something he had lost in the past. He had seen a similar expression on Muri, the daughter who had vowed to make her father's name famous. Muri's face again floated into his mind. Just then, Mug took the opportunity when Glass wasn't looking to sneak out and flew towards Ed's cabin, where Janica was waiting for Ed's return. After escaping from the academic building, Mug headed straight for the cabin in the forest. At that moment, Lucy was leisurely lying on the roof of the cabin. The time Ed was sick reminded her of Glock. After Glock handed over the magic travelogue of the southern continent to her, he quietly left this world. Glock accepted his own death more readily than anyone else, but Lucy could never forget him. The only thing that temporarily made her forget her longing was the satisfaction brought by the jerky in her arms. However, the jerky was soon finished. At the same time, she noticed Mug rushing over. Elsewhere, upon hearing the news, Janica's magical power suddenly went berserk, which puzzled Lucy. Normally gentle Janica, why would she suddenly go berserk? The scene shifts. The Academy is holding the sensing ceremony for the Sage's sealed grimoire. Important figures from both sides arrived at the scene, acting President Lortel and Headmaster Abel. Lortel noticed that Abel and Crepin were of similar age, but they felt completely different to her. After the auction of the Sage's sealed grimoire ended, Crepin had sought out Lortel, asking her to sell the Sage's sealed grimoire to him. Lortel directly quoted 12,000 gold coins, not expecting Crepin to accept the deal so readily, and he even added a priceless piece of information. Elt had hired mercenaries to go to Sylvania Academy. Although Crepin didn't give Lortel a good feeling, this piece of information was indeed noteworthy. Now everything was ready. Looking at the Sage's sealed grimoire so close at hand, Lortel began to daydream. After all, she also obtained Ed's free pass. A powerful magical circle spread out from the ground, and suddenly, a group of stone men surrounded them. Taking advantage of this moment, Professor Glass directly snatched the Sage's sealed grimoire, leaving Lortel dumbfounded. She didn't expect Glass to take the Sage's sealed grimoire so openly. Although Ed wasn't at the scene, the plot still continued. Back at Professor Glass's laboratory, Ayla still hates my presence and still blames me. At this moment, I guess Glass has already succeeded in seizing the grimoire. Meanwhile, Ayla's cries attracted Kum's attention. If you keep yelling like that, the monster of the underground waterway in front of you might wake up. Glass instructed Kum not to use the two of us for experiments and hoped we would stay put. This suited me just fine, which surprised Kum since I was calmer than he expected. There's nothing more to do now. We just have to wait for Taylor to arrive. By then, the library that Taylor passed through will already be devastated. As long as no one disturbed me, I could focus on collecting those spoils of war. However, at this moment, I am most worried about two things. First, the feeling of passing the stage seems too easy. Second, Ayla has been keeping her guard up against me. Then, I stopped her. If I really had any intentions against you, do you think I would miss such a good opportunity? Since I've seen this from Taylor's perspective, if I had to say it out loud, I'd say I feel pretty positively about Ayla. Lies. You're Ed Roth. Before she could finish her words, I interfered. Stop spouting nonsense and calm down. Taylor will he'll definitely come if we wait here. Taylor, do you have the right to say his name? Why wouldn't I? I answered immediately, which shocked her. I'm sorry about the entrance exam, but I had my own difficulties. And I also helped a lot with the Glaskin affair, didn't I? You might not trust me, but you must have faith in Taylor. He'll definitely come to rescue you. Isla was surprised that Ed was apologizing to her. Was this still the Ed she knew? Meanwhile, I sighed silently. Just then, Mug flew back in from outside. I didn't even know this guy had sneaked out. He is obviously extremely worried about my situation. You brat, where have you been this whole time? Mug, good job finding me here. Finally, I had someone I could talk to normally. Seeing this, Isla signaled that I could ask for help through the sprite. There's no need for me to add another variable by doing something like that. But before she could finish, Mug interrupted. Don't worry, Janica has already received the message, and it seems she's quite upset. Not just that, the fox merchant and the magician who often appears on the roof want to join in too. Master Ed, did I do well? One way or another, we will be rescued. Hearing this, I was stunned. My perfect plan was completely ruined. Now I had to think of a way to fix this. Immediately, I said a few words to Mug, then threw it out. Then, I lay against the iron door, shouting loudly for Kum to let me out. Kum mocked me for being too naive, scoffed, and then left the place. After he left, I immediately stopped shouting because my goal had been achieved. Mug was able to retrieve the key to the cell. He handed it to me. After the cell was opened, I walked out first. Just as Isla was about to come out, I shut the cell door directly. From now on, you can only answer yes or no, I told her. I left you inside because it's too dangerous outside. Staying inside at least ensures your safety. Just cooperate with them, and if they notice that I'm gone, just tell them I escaped. Sell me out immediately. Besides, your legs don't have any strength right now, do they? Isla was about to speak, but I immediately stopped her. Just answer my questions. Eventually, Isla reluctantly accepted my proposal. Good, now keep quiet and stay still. I'll handle it. However, as expected, new complications arose. I can handle the minor variables one way or another. After all, my experience was growing, and I could use the known information to solve most problems. But there would inevitably be things I couldn't solve. Now, by any means necessary, I must prevent Janica and Lortel from joining the battle. There's also an enemy so powerful that countless peak challengers couldn't defeat it even after hundreds of hours. As long as I don't deliberately try, it won't happen. So I had never cared before. However, a bad ending that will definitely trigger if certain conditions are met, no matter what method is used. No matter what, I must stop Lucy from coming here.